Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the Growlers Edition Infinity and the Dred Effects Custom Paint Infinity. I'm going to run you through both brushes. We're going to have a little look at what's sort of been done to both, and then you can make your mind up on which one you prefer. I'll talk you through the good points and bad points on these. I've also had a message off one of the subscribers asking if the 0.15 needle and nozzle fits this brush, because this one comes in a 0.2, and if you get the twin edition you get the 0.4 as well, so you get the two editions in that box, but this comes as a 0.2 standard. So we'll have a look at this brush first. Now the differences you will see on this brush instantly is, I instantly notice the body part here. This is longer center than the original. You've got your same back on the Infinity as all the Infinities, but this one's just had some laser etching. It's got a blue tip there, does exactly the same on this part of the body, so that's exactly the same back. The changes that have been done here is the chuck is longer, which is supposed to sturdy the needle piece here, give it a little more stability. But I find when you're airbrushing you don't notice this part when you're using the trigger here. I've noticed with this brush and with mine there's no difference between the two, but you've got a longer bit here. When you undo this, we'll take the needle out. When you undo this piece here, on the older Infinity you've got like a hexagon piece, which is this piece here, which goes into the body on the spring. Now this one's got loads of little sort of scallops that slide into this part here as you pull back. Basically this is round in here and that just slides back in there. So same mechanism but just a little bit more fancy here, bit longer on your chuck. So basically works exactly the same. Now when it comes to the trigger, which I'll take out here, the original trigger on the Infinity, you had a round column coming down. This one's a square, so the original one you can literally spin this and turn your trigger top round. This one you can't, so you're set in a position. Now people are not liking this trigger top because you've got a lip to the top of it just here. Now I can see why people don't like it, because not everybody sits to the back of the trigger with their finger. Some people sit on top or over the front, so it's not sort of user friendly to everybody. If you want the person that sits to the back, I tend to sit at the back on a trigger on the H&S, sort of sit to the back, so this feels quite comfortable for me because you've got a little slope here. But if you sit into the front you are not going to get on with this trigger top because you've got this lip here. The only way round that is to Dremel that off and flatten that lip out and you'll be good to go. You'll have a nice comfortable trigger if you sit over the front. It fits in exactly the same as the old one where that screws in, so it's exactly the same movement as the old one. Moving to the front of the brush, what they've done on the front of the brush is they've made it slightly shorter. They've made the body slightly shorter, and I think that's another reason why this has been made longer, so when you put both brushes together they both come up at the same length. But you will see in a minute when I hold them up, this piece here is a little bit shorter, so they say it brings you closer to your work. It's not a massive amount closer, guys, it really isn't. If you're used to holding an airbrush you won't really notice the difference in sort of going up closer. The closer you go, if you're doing models like this, I painted this with my Infinity, no problems at all, going up close, painting it, dead easy. So I don't see much of a difference. I don't personally see much of a difference with this shorter body on the front. Needle is the 0.2 on the V2 needle and nozzle setup on the front of this. So you've got the floating nozzle in these that slide out, so you've got the 0.2. Now what I'll do is I'll just show you that the 0.15, which I've got here, got the 0.15, slide that in So that's your 0.15 nozzle, and then we've got the 0.15 needle. And there you go, that does work. And that's the beauty of H&S, is you can swap the needle and nozzle setups to what you want. So the 0.15 does go in this brush, not a problem at all. To the front, you've got your same setup. So it's exactly the same front end nozzle, air cap, prong cap as the original Infinity. This has not been changed. I'll leave that needle out. So you've got your same prong cap as the original. That prong cap comes off. So it's exactly the same front end. So when you fit the sketching caps, the sketching caps will go across to your normal Infinity. So if you can get hold of these and you wanted to get hold of some sketch caps, if you can buy them separately, they will fit your original Infinity, not a problem. They are quite nice. I've used these up against paper and used it as a guide against paper. They say they're sort of like a sketching cap or a distance cap. So you can sort of find your distance. I suppose when you go around a model, you can go in closer, or if you want to get a certain distance, you can use them that way. So that's a little bit about this brush. The other downside to this is you've got this cup, and you will get this cup that fits only. If you put your bigger cup on, it starts to come across the front of your trigger. You're going to catch your cup with a finger on the trigger. So you've got the option of that cup or the micro cup with this only. The original Infinity, you can go the micro cup, that cup, and the bigger cup. So bringing the brush in smaller has stopped you having a bigger cup on the top. Now if you're used to using a lot of volumes of paint, the bigger cups are handy, but you can't fit the bigger cup to this one. You get the cap to the top. You can get the same cap that fits your original Infinity as well. So we'll slide that back in there. But all in all, using this brush, I used it on a piece of artwork. Very nice brush. It just feels like using your normal Infinity. You are not getting much difference in performance. It just feels like your normal Infinity. I didn't feel any sort of trigger delay on this, because a lot of people were saying about the trigger delay on the old ones. So that's the Grales Edition Infinity. Nice brush if you are looking at one. You can change the needle and nozzles. Sketch caps are really nice. It's a really nice, fancy looking brush with the details on it. You've got your blue part of the trigger there. So it is a nice brush if you are a H&S fan and you want like a limited edition Infinity to your collection, like I got it for. That's why I picked it up. But a great brush, guys. So we'll move on to my edition of it. Now, what makes this an absolute beast for details is standard Infinity CR Plus front end. We've got the prong cap as standard, what you get on the other one. Now, to the back, we've got the original Infinity handle, but then I stripped all the red anodized off and highly polished this with a Dremel, so it's all nice and smooth and shiny, so it just blends across. You've got your little gold accent to the back, and then I changed the trigger top. So I took the original top off the Infinity bar here, and then made my own trigger top, which is nice and flat, so you've got plenty of room to put your finger. And that's what I like about a brush. If you've used Iwata's custom microns, have got a real nice flat wide trigger top, and they are the most comfortablest. So I was trying to get this sort of comfortable feel over to the Infinity, and I've hit it bang on with this trigger because it's nicely sort of angled slightly down, big flat top, and you've got it's just really comfortable to use. Inside is exactly the same, not as that one but as the original. No dramas with this at all. Absolutely works perfect, the internals on this. Now if we take the inner out of this one, take the needle off, and then take this piece out, you've got my trigger adaptation there. Now you've got your hexagon one that moves back. Now that's the trigger hack, guys. If you want to get your Infinity on point, put your Teflon washers on here, and that takes that slack movement up out the trigger and your brush will be absolutely on point. So I've done the trigger hack to that, which makes it work really nice. Just screw that back in there. So it locates the same, you get full trigger, exactly the same. Drop that back in here. So it's going to be a pain now, not drop down. That's it, we're in. So that's the trigger in. Really nice, comfortable trigger. You get your full distance on your trigger, so it works exactly the same, but you've got a real nice trigger response. This is absolutely on point for trigger now. Now, moving to the front of this brush, what makes this really nice is I've got the V2 needle in with the original 0.15 nozzle, which was the brass looking one. Now, what makes this even better for detail is when you set this brush up, put the needle in, I'll just hold a piece of, I'll show you on this one here because you'll get the same distance on needle exposure. Now, if you can see that, you can see how much needle's coming out of that. Now that's how a 0.15 would sit as well, how much needle comes out the front. When you look at my one, see how much needle's coming out the front of that? There's a lot more needle exposed out the front. And what you'll find with this is, when you go down for detail on this, with the setup of this being on point now, you don't go right up to your paper to get hairlines. I can sit about from my finger away to here and I can get hairlines instead of going right up like this to get hairlines. I can sit back with this setup I've got and I can get hairlines just coming off the paper really nice, and it does a different throw on atomization. On the 0.15 it sort of opens out sort of here, on your fan pattern it opens out, but this is more opening to about here. It's more pointing down, so you get more detail out of this brush, and it's just made it a really, really nice brush to use with the trigger top, the hack to the internal there, and the different needle with a different nozzle setup. So that's both infinities. I'll just show you that the actual caps do fit an original. So this is an original front end, and your sketch caps just slot straight on the front, and you can see that exposure there, how much needle's coming out the front. It's a lot more than standard, and that's what makes this brush really nice on detail. So I hope that sort of answered a few questions. Both brushes are really good. This one will get down on detail a lot easier than this, a lot easier and more on, I would say more on point and more comfortable than this one. But this is a very nice brush. The artist that's designed it, yes, he's put his nice tweaks on it. Does look really smart, and it's a good one to the collection, guys. It's H&S at the end of the day, and they are easy peasy to strip down, put back together, maintain. They're just nice, robust brushes, guys. So that's a look at both infinities. I hope you've enjoyed the video and got something out of it. It's sort of like answered a few questions for you, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Cheers.